welcome back to Vacation Podcast of Depression.
Podcast of us, I guess.
That was the Japanese to Korean to German to Korean to Japanese translation of our podcast.
That was pretty good.
Yeah, the podcast of winning super for depression vacation.
Hi, yeah. Whatever they do in those animes.
Go Super Saiyan on...
Right?
Yeah.
On depression.
Ooh, man, that would be a weird anime, but, you know, it's not like Japan hasn't turned out tons of weird anime anyway.
Listen, I've tried everything I can. At this point, karate chopping my depression might be a good idea.
Yeah, just to be... Well, I did have I did see a child psychologist for a little bit when I was in 5th grade, and he actually did suggest something like that, like sort of just like taking aggression out on like a pillow or something like that. I was not an aggressive 5th grader. People were being aggressive to me, but there was a lot of like other issues to deal with for that.
Wow, really coming out and swinging in the first couple minutes of the podcast today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, as Ryan would say, be less depressing.
I work hard on it every day, you know?
Well, I guess the first thing to talk about, how was Cafe Murder? Like, you said that it sold out.
Yes, Cafe Murder was a success. We had a fantastic time. I can't really hear out of my headphones, so I'm just going to take them off.
Oh, no. Well, I can hear in the headphones,
okay.
so...
Well, then that works for me.
Yeah.
It's just, it just sounds very muffled.
As long as we know that somebody is listening to it actually recording, like, because that's my worst, absolute worst nightmare.
Like, you know, again.
Well, so when I was doing my first feature, just as a quick aside before we talk about Cafe Murder, we had one incredibly tumultuous day where like the DP was mad at me, I was mad at the DP, and the place we were shooting at had an unscheduled drag car show race across the street. So like none of the sound we recorded was usable. And then we got home and realized because we had a short crew, nobody had been listening to the audio. And so the mic was unplugged the whole time.
Oh my God.
And it was dark. Like there were lots of words thrown. Ended up being better that we shot it another day, but nothing sucks more, as you have found out, than putting your lifeblood into recording something and finding out it's completely unusable. Yeah.
I don't know if there are other things in my life where it's like, oh man, I wasted X amount of time doing this. So, I mean, that was one of them where I was like, that's a whole hour of my life that I will not get back. But I still think it was a great conversation overall. It's just none of you guys get to hear it.
Yeah. Well, he talked about our dreams.
Our dreams.
And like real dreams, they're dead.
No.
Oh, they're dead for me. I don't know if they're dead. You're still too young.
Ryan had a dream the other night that he was being chased by an alligator. And he like screamed in the middle of the night, and that was fun.
Ooh, night terrors.
Yeah, Ryan does that sometimes. It's terrifying. Anyway, so Cafe Murder was an amazing success. We had such a great time. Excuse me. We had 117 people. We had to accommodate some extras because we had originally capped it at 100, but we had to get some more meals because we just overextended the amount of tickets that we sold. So
that's a good problem to have.
Yeah. And just got some really positive feedback, which was really great. Mm-hmm. And Ryan and I have been invited to do other things with this theater company.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's nice that they still want to hang out with us.
Who wouldn't want to hang out with you guys after a while?
Right?
Like
we're a delight.
After the New Year's party, like a couple of my like friends from like other various corners that came there, like, oh, who's that really nice engaged couple that were there? And that's how they identified you.
I love that we're the nice engaged couple.
It makes you feel like a grown-up, doesn't it?
It does. I was just thinking about that recently where I'm just like, oh shit, I'm like engaged now. And that's weird. And I'm going to be a whole-ass married person eventually.
Whole-ass married?
Yeah.
That's wham. Wham, whole-ass married.
Yes, I love that.
I'm going to be wham. I'm going to be wham. Talking that whole ass matrimony. Wham.
I think you should play that at our wedding.
Sure. I'll sing any song that you want at your wedding. It'd be the first time anybody's wanted me at a wedding, so that's not true.
How? Why you gotta be like that?
Because I'm a depressing person sometimes.
God damn it.
But yeah, do you think you'll do another murder mystery anytime?
I hope so. They said they wanted it to be like an annual thing. So definitely, I think I would definitely do it again, whether it's with this organization or not. But it was a lot of fun. I was worried that it was going to be like too obvious who the killer was, and I was pleasantly surprised when we went through like the results of people guessed. It was like all over the map. So I was like, okay, good. Like we did what we needed to do to make it an actual mystery.
So this was a defined murder. It wasn't just like people voting on who the murderer was.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we had there was like someone who did do it. Now my favorite part was I was shoved into a closet after the first 10 minutes because I was dead and I had to sit in that closet for the next hour.
Oh, that's boring.
It wasn't my most shining moment.
Oh, and that sucks because it was only one performance too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
all that work and I get shoved in a closet for an hour.
Yeah, but spoiler alert for Cafe Murder, if anyone ever goes to it, and if anyone else ever does it, because you mentioned that maybe Lauren had done it at some point.
Yeah, she said, in fact, right before we were doing this podcast, I texted her because I knew that you had done it. And I was like, hey, what was the character you played again? She said she played Marjorie, the stuffy business lady.
Yep, that's exactly, yeah, we did the same one.
Oh, you were the same character?
No, I was Rosemary,
Okay.
which was the murder victim. And spoiler alert, she doesn't actually die. So
Ooh.
I had to sit in the closet throughout the whole process and then do a surprise reveal at the end.
Oh, so that was that was in the plan, sitting in the closet. Okay.
Yeah, but it was also like there was nowhere to go other than the closet. So like when we were doing rehearsals, I could like sit out somewhere else, like go to the bathroom, drink some water, while they're doing the other scenes. But no, in this case, I sat in the closet and played Tetris until it was my time to come out again.
Very prestige.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It was so funny because my character was a bitch. I got the opportunity to channel my Karen energy. Every nasty customer I'd ever had in my life, I just unleashed all of that pent-up aggression from customer service, and I was just textbook like...
Ooh, that's like very method acting, like using your personal experiences and recollections to feed into a character.
Oh, yeah. And it was so funny because, like, afterward, Ryan and I are going around, people are saying, great job, whatever. This woman came up to me and she was just like, you were so convincing. I did not want, like, when you started walking over here, like, as a person, I didn't want you to come over here because I thought you were that annoying. And I was like, good, that's great. This show did wonders for my self-esteem.
I can't remember who this was because there have been so many movies I've been involved with and saw screened, but like, years ago, like a friend of mine was in a movie I went to go see where he played like the total jerk character. And I was like, oh man, you were so good in that. You played a jerk incredibly well. And he was like, I don't know how to take that, Hal.
Well, see, but that was the thing. Like so a lot of the rehearsals where we were doing improv and they were supposed to talk about, how terrible I was. My character anyway. And so I'm like sitting there. I was like, guys, this is doing amazing work for my self-esteem. But like I was insufferable. The whole point was that I had to be like someone that you would murder if you had the chance. So I really played that up, and people got a kick out of it. And Ryan and I were like going around, and so Ryan played the chef who had a French accent, and the same woman was like, "Are you actually French?" And Ryan was like, "No," and I was like, "Oh, honey, you convinced them that you're French," and she was like, "Oh my gosh, are you two a thing?" I was like, "Yeah, we're engaged," and she was like, "Oh my God, that's so wild."
Oh, honey.
Yeah, well, it was just funny because like we played our characters so well that like people were like, oh my gosh, like the chef and the murder victim are a thing. Like it was funny. So
that is really funny.
Yeah, my dad went, and I was really excited because he texted me while I was in my closet, and while they were doing like the voting session, and he was like, I think it's this character, and it wasn't the right character, and I was so excited because like my dad, he's a lot like me where like he loves mysteries and stuff, and he's usually pretty good at picking up on like the little clues and everything. So I was like, yes, he got it wrong. Not that I want my dad to be wrong, but it was just that like, yes, we fooled him.
Yeah, just like Murderville, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah, I love Murderville.
I only just watched it recently because, again, this was like another thing that Lauren told me I had to see. And like all the people in the improv theater had talked about it anyway, because it is like, you can tell who actually has good improv chops and who really doesn't that much on that show. And Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
I really enjoy that show.
The
I
Christmas
hope they do
special,
more.
it was such a hot mess.
Oh my God. It was so funny. I love when whoever's playing the body breaks character because they're just doing all sorts of weird things to the body. Just like you can, because they're still alive.
And that was, what's his name from Will and Grace was the body in that one, right?
I don't remember.
Sean Hayes, I want to say.
Something like that. I don't know. But some famous guy. But it was, I think it's hysterical because they always do weird things to the body. And the person, actor is just like trying to compose themselves and be dead.
This happens to me in improv a lot, actually. And I think people, because I'm such a larger framed person, people give me more like oomph when trying to like do things to my body or if I'm dead than usual, which I'm all for. Like I'm all up for the bruises of a good performance or anything like that. But I always think it's always hard to break character in those cases. Like
I kept breaking character in rehearsal because like I mean the cast that we had was just so, I mean they were all very funny people. I'd never worked with any of them before. And it was just so fun. They were all so funny and had great improv skills. And we just had such a great time all together. And they would just throw things in at the very end that would just, I couldn't help it. And I broke character a dozen times during rehearsal. And it got to the point where the week before the director like looked at me and she was like, Shannon, we open in 1 week. You need to stop breaking character because you're supposed to be a bitch and like you are just like all smiles and losing it every time somebody does something.
It was your toughest acting assignment ever, trying to be a bitch.
Was. Well, yeah, because like, and I love comedy and I love when people are funny and I love to smile and laugh. So it's really hard for me to be like a negative character. But she was also like, but you're also like low-key carrying the beginning of this show. So you need to be bombastic, but I need you to be more your character. And I was like, all right.
Bombastic, fantastic.
Yeah.
That's really cool. It sounds like it was an awesome experience for you.
Yeah, it was, and it was nice to get back into theater. I've missed it. I haven't had the opportunity since high school because I've just been so busy. But now that I have more of a grown-up work schedule, it's much nicer.
I would love to get back into theater, but as long as I have my current job, which most days are either 12 to 8 or 2:30 to 10:30.
Oh, that's gross.
It's gonna like.
That's like the whole day.
It is the whole. There are a lot of advantages to it. Like it's been, especially the last couple of weeks, easier to just go to the gym for an hour before work and like get stuff done around the house. But then, it's a little tougher to make a rehearsal. In fact, it's impossible really to make a rehearsal schedule.
Yeah.
In fact, one of my coworkers took me up on. I run a scholarship through the improv theater that nobody ever takes me up on.
Cool.
Only 2 people have done it so far, including Misty Karlovich. I don't know if you ever. Did you ever cross paths with her when she did stand up?
I recognize the name.
Yeah, she did stand up for a long time, and she actually had she accidentally said one of my absolute favorite jokes I've ever heard at a stand-up thing, but didn't realize that the nuance of how she said it was why it was so funny, and then the joke was, so my child just had a birthday because I'm a responsible parent, and that was the whole
That's
joke.
Funny.
That I don't know why, but just the wording of that is like, yes, I guess the bare minimum of being a responsible parent is making sure your child has their next birthday.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I mean, keeping them alive from one year to the next, that's the challenge in and of itself.
But yeah, going back to where this thread started 30 seconds ago. So one of my coworkers was the only other person who ever took me up on the improv scholarship, and he had to schedule work with our scheduler quite a bit to make a 7 p.m. class those days. And it was hard. There were the way that they schedule it too is that we have days that we can work in 9 to 5, but if somebody you're kind of on call. Like if somebody calls off, then you have to come in. And there were a couple of days that he missed classes as a result of that, which really sucked. So
yeah, that's a bummer.
Yeah, but also shout out if anybody out there wants to try an improv class. Shout out to the Harrisburg Improv Theater, which I talk about a lot on this podcast, and I absolutely love. It's a wonderful place, and I do have a scholarship available for level 1 for every term if anybody ever wants to take me up on it. So
nice. That's a pretty cool plug.
Yeah, so hbgimprov.com.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I said, the work schedule is just kind of what gets me a bit.
So I discovered something over the weekend. So, we had Cafe Murder on Saturday, and Ryan and I had our Valentine's Day dinner date scheduled for Sunday, which this is the second year in a row where we have inadvertently scheduled it for Super Bowl Sunday.
Oh, yeah.
And I am never going back. We are, for the rest of our lives, our Valentine's Day dinner date will be on Super Bowl Sunday, because we walked right into Red Lobster and just sat down, and it was beautiful. There was no one there. We got served right away. I had many a sangria and just had a great time. And the year before, we went to the Melting Pot on Super Bowl Sunday.
I remember this, yeah.
Yeah, and it was perfect. It was great because we didn't have to wait. And like everybody was home watching the Super Bowl, and we just got to get served at our local eateries. So please don't everyone take me up on that piece of advice, but
you're ruining it for the rest of us.
Coordinate with me though. Like, I'll tell me where you're going on Super Bowl Sunday and I won't go there, but we all just need to coordinate and go to different restaurants across the central Pennsylvania region.
Yeah, it was I got off of work at 8 on Super Bowl Sunday, and it was unusually a ghost town driving home. And this was actually, I really like the NFL football a lot, and I follow it a lot. But this was the first Super Bowl in a while I just really watched none of, because I worked till 8. And then actually Lauren and I had our Valentine's evening thing that night as well. And she actually said, hey, let's wait until, the Super Bowl starts. We can just walk into Giant and get food and something. And there was nobody there whatsoever.
Yeah.
It was a ghost town.
It's beautiful.
And we played board games, drank beer, and watched Community. It was a great evening.
That's cute.
Also ate mac salad for an entree.
Love that.
Yeah, nothing beats eating the pre-made mac salad at Giant, which is really just a soup of mayonnaise.
Yeah,
and relish.
And that doesn't sound appealing to me, but I'm so glad you guys had a great time.
Oh, it was so good.
Yeah. So, yeah, my dad and his new girlfriend came out to Cafe Murder, which was really nice. I like her a lot, which is something to be said because most of his girlfriends do not quite meet my standards. So we're already quite on the ball with this one.
Go, Brian. Yay.
Go, Brian. Woo!
It's always cool to hear that your dad is doing... Your dad really, I haven't talked with him a ton as he's come up to stand-up nights, but I really... like that he always comes out to support you, and he seems like a pretty cool guy overall.
Yeah. And he deserves every piece of happiness too. And one thing that stood out to me, I don't think he listens to the podcast. I don't know if his girlfriend listens to the podcast. So if I'm about to blast their personal stuff out there, I mean, it's not
scandalous.
I know. Well, but it's a whole thing because I after having been in a healthy relationship for as long as I have at this point, when I first met her, we went over to my dad's house for dinner, and we were all sitting down, and my dad was talking, and as he was talking, I noticed that she was looking at him while he was talking, and I've kind of noticed that other women he's dated, if he's talking and we're all just sitting at the table, they just kind of, they'll look at me, they'll look anywhere else, but she was giving him her full attention, and just that really resonated with me. And I was just wow, she really wants to hear what he has to say. And just the way that she looked at him, my heart just got so big. And so, yes, go Brian, for sure. I think he's found a good one so far. So crossing my fingers.
Yeah, it's interesting that you brought that up because I was actually I forget if I was talking to Lauren or somebody else about this, but there were some people I've dated in the past, for all intents and purposes, I should have been very interested in and liked them a lot. But just for as a dating relationship, they were kind of boring. And I couldn't exactly put my finger on why. And I think that you just said it, maybe they were not really engaged with me as I was talking. I think I'm pretty good with engaging people when they're talking because I like to listen to people in general. But it's yeah, it's a big thing to feel heard and not, as they say in Fight Club, wait for your turn to speak.
Right. Well, and the whole thing was he wasn't even speaking directly to her. He was just speaking to the table, telling a story or something. But just the fact, because she was sitting next to him and had her whole body language turned towards him, looking him in the face while he was talking. And it just really stood out to me because I don't think I've ever seen anyone do that.
I love little things like this that people recognize with relationships that reveal how good somebody is for somebody else.
Yeah, so I'm really excited for them and looking forward to see where that ends up. Also, on a totally unrelated note, you know how people of my generation are, and we love to put everything on Instagram. So, I posted this like Happy Valentine's Day post for Ryan and all this kind of thing. And my grandmother commented on it and said, "Congratulations, sweetheart," which is totally fine.
Okay, it starts out well.
Totally fine. Except that she didn't say anything on the actual engagement post that I posted, 5 months ago now? Wait. Yeah, 5 months ago.
Is this a grandmother you're on speaking terms with?
No.
Oh, okay.
But it was really funny because I'm pretty sure that she thinks that we got engaged on Valentine's Day.
Aw. She also could just be...
trying to be nice. But
or maybe technology averse. I don't know.
I don't know. She's always on Facebook. But it was just it was so weird because knowing her, she'd be all over it. And I didn't see I don't even think she liked the post or anything from the engagement. So when I saw it on Valentine's Day, I was like, Grandma, what do you think is happening here? But I don't know. It's all weird. Grandmas are weird.
Maybe she just thinks you have a friend, finally.
Right, yeah.
It's like, I knew you would
you're dating someone?
I eventually knew you'd find a friend.
Oh, my God. Maybe. I don't know. My family's just weird.
Yeah, families are definitely weird. I mean, yours significantly weirder than mine, but...
Yeah, my therapist and I were talking about it today. Anyway. How was your Valentine's Day?
Our Valentine's Day was nice. We played a lot of board games. We got this Disney trivia game that we played that was essentially like a more linear version of Trivial Pursuit with all Disney questions.
Nice.
We watched Oliver and Company, which is Lauren's favorite of the Disney movies.
Okay.
And one I had kind of forgotten about, actually, because I'd only seen it once as a kid.
My favorite is The Sword in the Stone.
I haven't seen Sword in the Stone for forever either.
I love that movie. And I don't know why I love it, but I think a lot of it has to do with Mad Madam Mim. I think she's one of my favorite Disney characters of all time.
The only thing I remember from that is the blow me to Bermuda line. What's Bermuda? Oh, it hasn't been discovered yet.
I loved that movie so much. I had a pet rat when I was in high school, and I named it Archimedes because the owl in that movie is named Archimedes.
I knew that from Kingdom Hearts because Merlin is a very active character in both of the Kingdom Hearts games that I played.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I've never played Kingdom Hearts.
Oh, man. It was when that first game came out, it blew my mind how fantastic it was because I'm a huge Final Fantasy and Squaresoft fan in general. And it was just such a bonkers idea to throw them in 2002, in a game together. And the game was the play for it was a lot of fun. There were certain levels where, in the Mermaid level, you swam, and in the Peter Pan level, you could fly. It was really the same mechanic, just minus water. And it really felt like a free-flowing game. It was very fun. And the series really lost its shit quite a bit. But the Kingdom Hearts games were a lot of fun.
Huh. I never got into them. I'm so excited. Did you see the newest trailer for Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom?
I have not, but that's coming out soon,
March,
right?
Or May. Coming out in May.
Oh, okay, May.
Ryan's going to get it for me for my birthday.
Woo!
My birthday's in June, so I told Ryan, I was like, listen, you could get it for me in May, and we'll just celebrate my birthday in May. My birthday's in May now.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, and I said, you're going to get that for me, right? And he was like, well, how do you know that? And I was like, because you're either getting me Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom or you're getting me pre-divorce papers.
Or you're getting me your ring back.
Yeah, right? So I told him that that's what that is all I want for my birthday.
It's a bit I saw that the sticker price for it's $70 too, right, to start. So
we don't talk about it.
I mean, it's worth every penny because
oh, I'm so pumped. Oh, I'm so excited.
I got into Breath of the Wild very late into the game, 3 years after it came out, when I just on a whim was like, I feel like doing something fun for myself. I'm gonna get a Switch and Zelda, and oh my God, I loved that game so goddamn much.
It's my favorite game, and it's the only video game I've ever beat.
I don't know if I'd classify it as my favorite game, but it is definitely in the top 5. And it's interesting because today I was reading an article, I think it was an article on NPR talking about Microsoft trying to buy Activision Blizzard. Have you heard about this whole thing?
Mm-mm.
So Microsoft has always I didn't know this because I haven't paid attention to like major consoles in a year, but the PlayStations are still outselling the Xboxes quite substantially.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, well, then it's because of like all the the originals that they have and the exclusives, like Final Fantasy 14, you can only play on there apparently. And so in an effort to compete, Microsoft was trying to buy Activision and Blizzard, which would give them possibly Call of Duty exclusively to Xbox. And PlayStation is suing them in the FCC over that because they say it would be bad for consumers. So it's like, and Microsoft is saying they're not going to make Call of Duty an exclusive, but it's this whole big thing. And then as a side note, they denoted that PlayStation was not suing Nintendo for the same reasons because Nintendo operates on a technologically inferior basis, which is, it sounds like it's insulting, but it's actually kind of true. Like Nintendo's hardware, outside of like the N64 coming out or things like that, hasn't really been that competitive with like the actual physical technical specs of PlayStation and Xbox forever, but they just do so much with so much like you can't tell me that Breath of the Wild does not look
gorgeous.
Yeah, gorgeous. It's not just gorgeous, but it's tooled in a way that makes it the best open world game I've ever played, and it's not even close.
Oh, I mean, like the thing is, I've logged almost like 300 hours in this game, and every time I go to play, there's new places I haven't seen yet, and I just recently got the DLC as like a present to myself just for existing. And so I like blew through almost the whole DLC. I only have 2 more quests in the DLC left to play. One is the Trial of the Sword. And the other one, I don't remember what it's called, but I have to find a mask in the Lost Woods. And here's the thing about the Lost Woods is if you get lost, they throw you at the beginning of the game.
Oh, I know.
And so I'm trying to look in every little tree that I find, but if I stray too far to a tree that I'm not supposed to, I have to go back to the goddamn beginning. And I still can't find this stupid treasure chest. And I'm upset about it.
No, they don't make it easy for a reason. Like, so you have longer to play. Is Trial of the Sword the one where like you get one hit kills, but you can also be killed with one hit?
Yep.
Okay, I bought the DLC immediately after finishing Zelda, and that was the only one I played, and it was so hard that I just put down the DLC and didn't do anything else.
Well, see, that was the thing. I started with that one, and then I was like, fuck this sucks. And then I played all of the other DLC.
Maybe I should
quests.
do that then.
Yeah, just do the other stuff, because a lot of it is really just finding treasure.
Perfect. Or finding the, 500 core? No, it was even more. Like, it was like 700 Korok seeds.
I don't even bother with the Korok seeds, really, because I still haven't figured out like 2 or 3 of the different puzzles that they have for it. And I have already cheated so much on this game.
You mean like looked things up? Or
Yeah.
I feel like you kind of have like.
Well, there are some of them, especially the shrine quests, that like you can't. There's no way you'd never figure that out on your own.
The one thing that I have tried once I realized and got used to the fact that in that game you literally can do anything. It became a little bit easier to do the trial quest because a lot of times it's more limited to your imagination, which is limited to what you've traditionally been able to do in video games. But I remember I got really stuck in like my 40th shrine, and it was because I had somehow either missed that you could do this or nobody told you that if you use stasis on an item and then whack it, it'll like move. Yeah. And I was like, there was no fucking way I ever would have figured that out. I'm really happy I looked it up.
I didn't know that you could chop the Guardian's legs off until probably well over 100 hours into the game.
Oh, how did you kill the Guardians then? If like
I didn't. I ran away.
Oh man, see, so when my playthrough for Zelda was very Guardian armor centric. And obviously, before you get the Master Sword, you're just going to be throwing away weapons, breaking like crazy on them. And you might kill one and might get like 2 of the items you need, but it's not like tenable. So as soon as I got the Master Sword, I actually just started like attacking them like crazy. Got killed a lot, but then like after killing a couple, you get like, what was it, the ancient screws and the ancient like things that you need to build like the helmet, for instance, that protects you against Guardian stuff, and then it just gets a little bit easier every time until you're fully decked out in the Guardian armor, and then they're a breeze.
Oh yeah, now I just like walk into Guardian infested territory, and I'm like, come at me, motherfuckers. But the whole thing was like, for the longest time, the minute I heard that music, I was out of there. I was like, fuck that, no.
Oh, that music is so like weird. Like I have never heard a sound quite like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was like the That one. You know what I'm talking about? Specifically for the Guardians, because they'd be like, dun, 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 but it would go.
And it's terrifying too, because it's not like the Metal Gear Solid like boom.
It's like that shocks you.
It's a slow burn, and you know that something that you can't kill is coming for you.
Yeah. But I have been spending a lot of time in the Hyrule Castle area because I'm now spoiled with the weapons that I find there, because I like go in there and pick up like 50 or 55 swords and things like that, and then I'll go out into the wilderness, and then all of these bokoblins and moblins have like these clubs that are like 18, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this stick? So I'm definitely spoiled now.
Once I got the Master Sword, I actually did not really care. Like I stashed a lot of Guardian equipment just because it was more effective against Guardians than those things, especially for like the combat trials. But yeah. In fact, what was it? I was really like interested when my sister's boyfriend had told me that like, oh, people do walkthroughs immediately where they just go and kill Ganon, and I'm like, how could you possibly do that? And the answer is that like, if you're lucky and get into Hyrule Castle and don't get killed, you can get awesome equipment there to carry you through the boss flurries. Yeah,
well, and I think you don't even have to get any divine beasts to go after to beat Ganon either. There's a YouTuber that Ryan likes that I've started watching. So here's the thing. I think I've told you before, and maybe I've mentioned before on the podcast, that I don't like to watch other people play video games.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
I don't like to do that. But now this guy, his YouTube name is like Point Crow, and I watch him play video games, but he mods them in really weird ways, and it makes me laugh. So like one of them is like, I'm speedrunning Zelda, but every time I say the word bear, 20 bears spawn on top of me, or something like that, like with his Twitch stream and everything, and it's hysterical. Or he's like, and every time I die, the game gets a little weirder. Like, it's just, I love that, like crazy mods, and you know, like trying to challenge yourself in different ways to play the game. That's something I can get behind.
For a while, like the last year when I was in Los Angeles and I was like unemployed a lot and had a lot of downtime, I was really into like SNES modulation, because there's a huge community of people out there, because at this point Super Nintendo games are pretty easy to program if you know how, that would just completely mod games in the form of patches. There were lots of them for Zelda: Link to the Past, and they were fantastic, but they weren't really play tested very well, so you could very well end up in an area that the creator did not realize you could get stuck in and just never recover from. But actually, one of my favorite YouTube channels, SNES Drunk, has a lot of videos talking about the best mods out there for games that like will either rebalance difficulty or change the story significantly, or sometimes just relocalize it, because some of my favorite RPGs have notoriously bad translation teams working on them. Like the big one of the biggest ones is Final Fantasy II, which is really Final Fantasy IV. The localization team was pathetic for that one, and there's a lot of things they say that make no sense. Like at one point, one of the insults is, "You spoony bard." And it's so like, that's actually a trope named in video games now, is the spoony bardism, when somebody just mistranslates something. It's not a mistranslation, but it's just such a so.
I told Ryan that one of my customers was being curmudgeonly today, and he was like, "That's not a word." And I was like, "I assure you it is. I assure you it is."
He didn't think curmudgeon was a word?
No, he knows curmudgeon is a word. He didn't think curmudgeonly is a word.
But like, you could use modifiers to make basically any noun into an adjective, right? English majors out there, please.
Well, I don't know about that. I'm not gonna blindly follow you on that one, because I don't want to get crucified by the literary geniuses that listen to our podcast.
All 13 of them. Yay, we love you.
We do. And but I mean, the whole thing was like, I texted him, I was like, she was being curmudgeonly, and he was like, "That's not a word." And I was like, "How do you know it's not a word, mister?" It is a word.
I love it when these things happen, because this actually happened with my running friend Rachel and I. we're talking like at the end of our run last week, and it turned out I did not know I've been misunderstanding what salt of the earth means for my entire life.
Oh God, am I misunderstanding salt of the earth?
Well, I think it's more like the context. Like it's usually used in context. Mostly, I've felt with Republicans talking about their voter base, and so I always thought it was like, oh, people who are simple and take pride in the fact that they are simple. And Rachel's like, I don't think that's what it is, Hal. And she looked it up, and she's like, oh yeah, it means that you're very down to earth, honest, hardworking.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, have I missed
the way I see it is like those people are supposed to be like the fundamental building blocks of society.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, just because of the context of who's been saying that phrase, I totally misunderstood it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
the more you know.
The more you know. That's what life is, just learning new things.
Yeah.
Anyway, going back to theater a little bit, something I did want to talk about.
Yeah.
But then we evolved away as usual.
I had ADHD roller coaster
going up the hill.
Anyway.
Oh yeah, so a couple of friends of mine did the vagina monologues in St. Clair in Schuylkill County last week, which I got to go up on Tuesday and do a preview for because they wanted me to shoot it for them. And so I'm editing a video together of their performances. And I haven't seen the vagina monologue since college.
I've never seen it.
First off, it is very fantastic. It's very moving in a lot of ways too, because it deals with like all the like spectrum. Is it weird that as a man I'm talking to you about the
No, not at all.
But anyway, I mean,
it's a little weird, but we're gonna move past it.
My friend Lisa directed it, and she was like in it too, in a fantastic performance. And my friend Vanessa, who's also my next door neighbor, was in it. And it was I just wanted to give them a shout out because they were wonderful in the like preview performance I saw. And it is a very like powerful thing. And also like it's good to see it too because like growing up in my household, particularly, the vagina monologues was kind of a punchline to many jokes. Mm-hmm. As you might imagine, for like conservative raising household. And also in the years since, Eve Ensler has written a series of like additional monologues for trans women too, which they put on at the performance there, which it was very moving. And that's what I'm getting at here. It was very nice.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, actually, if you want, like, I can show you the video, I guess, what it's done. I don't know if it's not quite the same thing as seeing it in person though, but
yeah.
But I'm sure.
I mean, probably my version of checking it out was probably going to go find a recording on YouTube or something. So it wouldn't be too far from what I was going to do anyway.
Yeah. I bet you there's a podcast or an audio version because it is a very like, as much as it is theater, it's like any sort of monologues. Yeah. It is the kind of thing that you could probably listen to.
I'm sure.
The actresses' inflections are important as well, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was my contribution to the theater section this week of Depression Vacation. I'm
looking forward to spring because that's when some musicals maybe might be coming up. I was kind of trying to dangle in front of the director for the murder mystery. I was like, when I was looking for. I found this when I was looking for musical auditions. If you maybe want to do a musical, that was what I was looking for. And she wasn't biting, but I'll work on her. We'll see.
Yeah, I wish I could help you with the musical stuff. That would be fun. So.
Yeah, and Ryan's playing in the pit orchestra for Seussical for the East Pennsboro High School.
Oh, my sister did that at one point.
I've never seen it, so I'm actually kind of excited.
Yeah, I have very rarely found a musical that I dislike, honestly. I feel like even the bad ones have had at least like one or two really redeeming songs that have at least given me some positive.
Yeah, I guess I could get behind that. The first thing that came to mind when you said that was that there are some movies, as we've discussed, that I haven't seen that like a lot of people have seen, and they're like, how can you not have seen this? You're supposed to be a movie buff. And it's like, listen, the amount of movies I have seen have far outweigh the movies I haven't seen.
I don't think that's true, actually,
well,
Shannon.
No, that's probably true. Anyway, but like
think of like all the movies out there, Shannon, that you haven't seen.
But like, for example, like I've never seen Legally Blonde.
Oh, okay.
And like every girl my age has seen Legally Blonde, and like that's their entire personality. And so one of the movies that was like that for me was Mamma Mia, and everyone told me how great Mamma Mia was and how it was like groundbreaking and amazing and blah 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 blah. Well, I watched it for the first time like a year ago, and spoiler alert, not all that great.
It's also a 15-year-old movie at this point, too.
I didn't love it.
See, I think that this is like your expectations were built up way too high, much like a recovering gifted child on Mamma Mia. And Mamma Mia, like, if there's any movie that's supposed to just be like dumb, funny fun, I feel like Mamma Mia is one of them.
Well, everyone ruined it for me.
That's why Meryl Streep really wanted to do that movie for years, because she said she took one of her daughters for her birthday party with a bunch of girls to see Mamma Mia on Broadway, and she thought that it was going to be like, oh, I'm just going to have to, sit here and chaperone my daughters while they have a good time. And she said she and the other mom that she went with ended up like dancing in the aisles during it because they were having so much fun.
Oh, that's nice.
And I think that's the right mindset for Mamma Mia, not like, this is a groundbreaking movie.
I don't know. It was just like everyone, it was one of those things that like people my age have made their entire personality, and I'm just like, good for you. So I'm really afraid to watch Legally Blonde now.
See, Legally Blonde is another, like, it is a fine movie, and it's a very good movie just because of the level of talent involved. Like, Victor Garber is very good. Obviously, Reese Witherspoon is great. Ali Larter also excellent in it. And it's a bit of dumb fun, really. Like, it's not anything that's going to move you to tears. But it's a funny premise. It's well acted. It's got some snappy dialogue. It's not groundbreaking.
Oh, well, damn it.
What are some other, this is a good conversation though, like what are some other big movies that you haven't seen that people would be surprised you haven't seen?
The Godfather, I haven't seen that.
Oh, Shannon.
Or like Goodfellas, any of those good movies.
Less of an Shannon, but so first off, The Godfather is a masterpiece.
I've heard.
It still holds up today, and it's like a masterpiece of like modern pacing in movies specifically, because there's never a wasted minute on screen, and that's hard to say for like a 2.5-ish hour movie. It was shot in, Sicily as is New York, multilingual. It's everything about the movie is just very beautifully done, and the story behind it, like how they made the movie, is even more bonkers, because they did a TV show with Miles Teller last year called The Offer about it, which I also loved. So yeah, go out and see The Godfather.
All right. It's on my list. I just haven't gotten around to it. Also, The Room. I haven't seen, and my friend group loves The Room. Like they think, well, it's ironically they love The Room.
I was obsessed with The Room for years.
So I mean, that's on my list of movies I haven't seen that everyone else has seen. For the longest time, like I said, oh man, I lost my train of thought.
Going back to The Room, because I love talking about this movie. We should, like, because we had talked about the idea of like doing a bad movie night at some point.
Yeah. You know what we should do is I should just watch all of these movies that I haven't seen that I'm supposed to see, and then we can do episodes about them.
That could be fun, like as a segment on an episode. Because The Room is, are you aware of like the overall, like what happened with that movie?
Kind of. Like I know that like Tommy Wiseau's like a crazy person.
Yeah. So also a quick like shout out as well. The Disaster Artist, which is Greg Sestero's book, on The Room, which was made into a slightly above average movie, in my opinion, is my favorite nonfiction book I've ever read.
Okay.
It's so there. Have you seen the Disaster Artist movie?
No.
It's a fine movie. It's very much broad strokes, and the level of insanity behind his and Tommy Wiseau's relationship with each other is significantly higher than what made it into the movie. Like, for instance, Tommy Wiseau surprise partied him into running a 10-mile race in San Francisco with him one time.
Oh, yeah, you told me about that.
Yeah, so there's like a lot of...
Well, I mean, here's another thing about... God damn it, I forgot again. We were talking about The Room, and we were talking about movies that I haven't seen but should have seen. Okay. I have an unpopular opinion.
Ooh.
My
Tell me.
unpopular opinion is that I don't think Tom Hanks is all that great.
I'm going to disagree on that.
I know, most people do. And here's the thing. There are some movies of Tom Hanks that I have not seen, which everyone says that if I did see, it would change my opinion about Tom Hanks.
Okay.
And I agree. Probably would change my opinion about Tom Hanks a little bit, but here's the thing that pisses me off about Tom Hanks.
Ooh.
Well, there's two things that piss me off about Tom Hanks. Number one is he's got too much star power, and I can't see him in anything without being like, that's Tom Hanks.
I agree.
My suspension of disbelief is not there.
See, this has been a problem of mine since IMDb was introduced to me, though, is I never, like, for the most part, I always see blank playing a person. I don't think of them as a character.
Yeah. Well, I prefer to think of them as the character. So that's the first problem. The second problem is that what they've started doing with Tom Hanks is making him every person in history. Every person in history, they're like, we'll get Tom Hanks to play him. Ryan and I were just talking, we were watching some Bob Ross the other day, and they're coming out with a movie about Bob Ross called Paint.
Yeah, with Owen Wilson?
With Owen Wilson. Yeah. And I was like, thank God it's not fucking Tom Hanks. Because every time they make a movie about a historical person, they're like, you know who would be perfect for this role? Tom Hanks. He was the Sully guy. He was the Captain Phillips guy. He was Elvis's agent in the new Elvis movie. He was, what else was
Mr.
he?
Rogers.
Mr. Rogers. And they're all just like, this is fine. Tom Hanks he was Walt Disney.
Oh, yeah. He was very good as Walt Disney.
Okay, but here's the thing. We can't just pretend that Tom Hanks looks like every person who made an impact in history.
You feel very strongly about this.
I do feel very strongly about this, and I hope this gets directly to Tom Hanks.
See, I feel like the whole vibe of Tom Hanks is not like weirdly, like when you said you thought he was overrated, I'm like, I disagree, but I don't really have a strong opinion one way or the other because Tom Hanks is a pretty like low-key person in general.
I just start watching a trailer for something. There's fucking Tom Hanks everywhere.
Tom Hanks.
I just don't think he's all that great.
The Medgar Evers story starring Tom Hanks.
I mean, like, who else are you going to try to make him Hitler?
Oh, no. That wouldn't work because, you know.
I don't know. I'm imagining it right now with the little mustache. It's just as believable as Walt Disney.
So an interesting, like, because you've brought up, like, he tends to play a lot of historical characters and also characters that are, like, well-liked throughout history. Have you seen Road to Perdition?
No.
Okay, this should be at the top of your list for Tom Hanks movies because he's not a villain in the movie. He's very much like an anti-hero.
He's never a villain in the movie.
Well, he's a killer for the mob, for the Irish mob in Chicago in the 1920s. And it is hard to watch him be like a more like bad guy in a movie. And he's not like, he's who we're rooting for, obviously, but he's unequivocally, by his own admission in the movie, a bad person because he thinks he's going to hell for all the people he's killed. So that's one that sort of subverts the Tom Hanks-ness of Tom Hanks movies. Have you seen That Thing You Do?
No.
Oh my God. That Thing You Do is one of my absolute favorite movies. It was like they gave Tom Hanks essentially carte blanche to do whatever he wanted in the 90s. And the first movie he decided he wanted to write and direct was this like pithy little 1960s nostalgia movie about like a one-hit wonder band out of Erie, Pennsylvania that shoots to the top. And it is so like, yeah, it's one of those movies you come across where it's so entertainingly put together, so well put together, so acted, and has a really snappy set of tunes from Fountains of Wayne as the like foundation. And it's not pretentious, and it's just a big fun movie to go to, essentially. So yeah, if you haven't seen That Thing You Do, I would highly recommend that because it's just so much fun. I also sing That Thing You Do at karaoke, so I'm a fan of it.
Sorry, now I'm just hype about the whole Tom Hanks thing.
I can tell. You want to tell me more about Tom Hanks?
No. Yes. I don't know. I don't like his voice. I think it's all facade. I think someday there's going to be some giant one of my predictions for the next 10 years is he's going to be the center of some huge scandal. Like, I don't know, like just something crazy. Maybe he has the secret to aliens or he discovered Atlantis or see now I'm thinking
these
like
are
good
awesome
stuff.
things. Yeah.
No, I know. Okay,
don't threaten me with a good time,
like
Tom
Epstein's
Hanks.
sex trafficking thing.
Oh no! Don't say this about Tom.
I'm just saying. It's just a matter of time. Next 10 years, you heard it here first, folks.
I mean, as much as I want to say I could never see Tom Hanks doing that, that's kind of what's happened in general society in the last 10 years was like all these men and some women too that you were like, I never thought they could be like that.
I know. And everyone thought Bill Cosby was a good guy.
Oh, it happens all the time. Like, you're aware who Deshaun Watson is in the NFL?
No.
So Deshaun Watson was like, he was the player that basically sexually assaulted at least 20 to 30 masseuses.
Oh, jeez.
And he was suspended. He was de facto suspended for like a year and 3/4, but didn't really get any real penalties from it. But before that happened, he was like everybody loved him in the NFL. He was the nicest guy. He was very smart, very good about like how he would describe his position. Because also black quarterbacks in the NFL have not always been treated with the same respect as their peers. And he was like a hyper intelligent, like very, showing people that all of their perceptions about who could play quarterback were totally wrong. And then it turns out that he's a huge sexual predator. So like nobody is immune to anything that happens because like celebrities are very good at curating their public persona. Mm-hmm. But I think Tom Hanks would be one that would break my heart.
I know, but I'm just saying, I have a sense for this kind of thing.
Yeah, also Armie Hammer was another one too, because like the perception of him around Hollywood was that he was like mostly a pretty nice guy that people like just liked working with, and then he turned out to be a fucking abuser and a cannibal, like cannibal with a capital C.
Listen, I'm telling you, this is a crazy world, man.
Yeah, my sister was the first person who told me that, and I'm like, there sounds like there's something might be wrong with that story.
I was one of the... So I'm not going to say what I was just going to say. But here's the thing. When the whole thing about R. Kelly came out...
Oh, yeah.
I knew about it years before that thing came out. Mm-hmm. And the reason is because I found this article was talking about his victims and things like that, and how they were trying to build a case against him that he had like a whole ass sex cult.
Oh, yeah.
And I was dating somebody at the time, and I was like, hey, I think R. Kelly might be doing weird sex shit and have like a sex cult and stuff because I read this article. And he was like, nah, no way. And then a couple of years later, guess what? Okay, so I'm just saying, if I called it about R. Kelly, I'm calling it about Tom Hanks.
So because you're younger, you may not I don't know what our frame of reference here exactly is, but like as early as 2000, everybody like knew that R. Kelly was some sort of weird sexual deviant, because that's when like his golden shower tapes that he had shot had come out. But also like he married Aaliyah when she was still a minor.
Yeah.
And apparently kind of forced her to marry him. Mm-hmm. And
others now that we know.
Yeah, there was one of the allegations was that he like bought young girls from their parents too. Like, and
that was the first time I heard about it, was the allegations that he was like buying girls from their parents. And I was telling my ex about it, and he was like, nah. I was like, well, who's the fool now?
My first reaction to that was like, is R. Kelly rich enough to be able to do this? Because like
apparently it doesn't take much.
Okay, because I was like, he only had like I Believe I Can Fly was a super smash hit, and I know that he was a moderately like middle to higher tier successful musician for his entire career, but outside I Believe I Can Fly, I can't really tell you a lot of other.
No, I didn't even know that I Believe I Can Fly was an R. Kelly song.
Yeah, like I couldn't. Trapped in the Closet. Okay, I take that back. But Trapped in the Closet was I don't think that was a successful song. I think that's just.
I don't even know I don't even know.
Oh my God. Okay, so I think I talked last time about I've had a very few moments in my life where something was so funny that it broke my brain, and I needed to like nothing was funny for days afterwards. R. Kelly's Trapped in the Closet chapters 1 through 15 music video is one of them. It is a hyper, like I can't say how pretentious this is because it's incredibly pretentious. It's like a 32-minute song that he makes that's essentially like the most ridiculous soap opera you can imagine playing out on screen as he's singing sweetly, like all this stuff. And it gets to the point where like a cop goes home to his very large white wife who's crying and having an affair with a black dwarf who's hidden under her sink, who then poops himself during the song. Like, this is the level of insanity that Trapped in the Closet escalates to. And I watched this with my college friends, and like I said, it broke my brain. And we had to actually stop it at one point because it was so funny. And like,
and Shannon was the crazy one for saying that R. Kelly was up to some shit.
Oh no, everybody knew R. Kelly was up to shit.
Okay, well, it didn't feel like it.
That is a weird dynamic though, because that was also the deal with with Bill Cosby, like you mentioned before too. Like the allegations around him had been around basically his entire career. Like even as much as like this was being discussed on IMDb message boards in 2001 when I first discovered IMDb. And like all other accusations, like the same rebuttals were like, oh, it's just women trying to extort him for money. And like all the other, reductive statements that you make in those situations.
Right.
And it was really just Hannibal Buress saying something that wasn't even a joke at an event in Philly that isn't even on like anything other than a cell phone video, being like, hey, just Google Bill Cosby rape and you'll see like all this stuff. And that just sort of broke the spell that Bill Cosby had over everybody. So it's weird that like, it's like the open secret kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and see, that's the thing too about when you're in a large community like that, and just kind of like you said, like it's not really a secret, but people don't really notice. So like when I was in high school in my early 20s, I was really active in like the atheist community, and there eventually came out a bunch of allegations about someone who was kind of like an uncle to me.
Oh no.
And it kind of blew us away, and but it turns out that like it was a long-standing knowledge that like people knew that he was the whole thing was like he was cheating on his wife, but also like abusing his power and that kind of thing. And it was a shock to me, but like there was another situation where my dad would be helping run these conferences and things like that, and I was working on I was going to be starting a podcast around that time, but it never came to fruition, and I wanted to interview a really prominent name in the atheist community who was going to be at a conference, and I mentioned it to my dad, and I was like, do you think he'd be willing to do this? And he was like, and this was, I'm not going to, I don't know why I'm not saying names, but it was Lawrence Krauss, who is a pretty well-known physicist.
Okay.
And I said to my dad, and I was like, I think I'd like to interview this person. And he was like, well, he kind of has a reputation for being a dirty old man. And I was like, then why does this person have a platform at your conference? So it's like one of those things where it's like he's kind of this way around women. It's like, well, why are you just kind of saying that flippantly and not doing something about it?
Yeah, it's like on my side of like where I've heard these things, my mom has talked about that a little bit too, because she went to Penn in the 60s, I want to say. And like she said it was like common, like especially when the Me Too stuff was sort of forming, her attitude on it was more or less kind of like, oh, that's just how a lot of men are. Like professors would ask out our students all the time, would slap us on the ass, and we would just call them eccentric, essentially. And I'm like, yeah, but did you like that behavior? And the answer was no. And I'm like, well, this is finally us changing that behavior.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I say us like I have anything to do with it, but
yeah. So long story short, don't protect weirdos.
Yeah, it's like they don't need your protection for starters.
Maybe they shouldn't have done the bad thing.
Yeah.
Taylor Swift said it herself when somebody was like, do you ever, feel bad about writing music about people that you dated? And she's like, well, if they had been nice people, I wouldn't have had to write songs about them.
I feel the same way about talking about people. I mean, I very rarely use names on our podcast or anything. Yeah. But I feel like if you're telling your story about how something or somebody has affected you, like, that's your...
It's your experience.
Yeah, it's your experience. Like, experiences can be remembered wrong or can be, like, I don't know, interpreted differently because, like, being the hero of your own story is definitely a lot different. But
right.
I feel like your story is fundamentally the thing that you are allowed to tell. And it's like always. That was a no
your
shit
story
how.
is the one you're allowed to tell. I like that.
Yeah.
Good kind of positive vibe to end things on.
That'll
today.
be our second T-shirt next to well-adjusted people don't do comedy.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, so the atheism thing is interesting too to talk, and this could be like a different episode because we always come up with great topics as we're at the end of the episode. But like, I'm sort of like, I don't want to call myself atheist with a capital A, but I'm kind of like, just especially growing up Catholic, and like you were saying with your conference person, we had tons of creeps that came out, And that was like a huge mind fuck moment when like the grand jury report came out and like lots of priests we knew were on it, including people who had been pillars of the community.
Yeah.
The salutatorian of my class, who became a priest himself after going to college and soul searching, wrote a very scathing op-ed about the priest, because he was the one. His name was Father Mahoney, and he was like the pillar of Holy Name of Jesus, and like was like the living saint priest of the area. And it turned out he had allegations from at least 4 different boys against him. And the salutatorian, who's now Father Zumbrum is his name, wrote a really scathing thing about this was the person who taught me spirituality, got me into faith in the church and everything, and his memory needs to be held accountable. I really liked that line. I remember the memory needs to be held accountable.
Yeah. I definitely think
because he had passed away at that point.
What was interesting was before, like when I was on my way here, I was like, we should do like another kind of like, I don't know if we've had a whole episode dedicated to it, but we've alluded to it a couple of times about like religion and that kind of thing. But I think maybe next episode we could really dive into some of this stuff with religion and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
it was definitely like, I remember this was kind of the argument that like I told a lot of, because almost all of my friends in college were like super atheist too. And it was kind of like, don't you like, oh, so what's the point of living if you don't think you're going to go to heaven? And they were like, doing meaningful things and having good relationships and being a good person. And kind of like the entire way that religion raises you is that the only reason you should do something is eternal life for rewards.
Yeah. And it was, trying to remember who it was that was saying that like if the only reason why you do good things is to get into heaven, then you're not doing it for moral reasons.
Yeah, I've heard that phrase a bunch of times, and
my first instinct was George Carlin, but I don't think that's right.
It feels like that could have been something Carlin said. I remember it's definitely paraphrased in True Detective season 1. Matthew McConaughey's character says something like, if the threat of eternal damnation is all that's keeping us from tearing each other apart, I'd say we should go quietly into the night.
Yeah.
But I know we're almost sort of out of time for our arbitrary time limit, but one of the best things I can use to describe like the spirit of atheism in general is Frank Turner, one of my favorite artists, has a song called Glory Hallelujah, because he's very much a humanist as well, talking about like, it's essentially like a happy church hymn where the chorus is, there never was no God. And it's sort of talking about like the positive vibes behind why, I don't believe in God and why, I know you're scared of dying, yeah, and I am too, but not thinking about it. It's not going to make it true and stuff like that. And I missed the lyrics on that a bit, but that's one of my absolute favorite like encapsulations of like, even if you're not an atheist, like just kind of like the way that people who are atheists in your life do things. Because it is a confusing concept to people totally raised in the church. Like, if your moral center is just eternal reward. So
for sure. Yeah, I definitely think we should get into this on the next episode, for sure.
Maybe I'll find a religious figure to come and join.
Hooray!
Yeah, that could be an interesting thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this was only a marginally depressing episode. We talked about Zelda, talked about how much Shannon hates Tom Hanks.
Listen, I never said hate.
You were
but I have strong opinions.
You were very passionate in your dislike and distaste for T. Hanks.
Yeah, he had to turn me down a little bit.
His name is literally Thanks, T. Hanks.
Yeah, well, he needs to do better.
Speaking of thanks, like as a final aside, one thing Lauren and I did do for Valentine's Day was we went to just like Ollie's and thrift stores to find weird things. And something, I don't know if you saw that I posted this, something I found at the community aid just around the corner was they were selling a signed Penn State poster signed by Jerry Sandusky with just a thanks exclamation mark at the bottom.
Oh, God.
And it's at the very bottom. So I was looking over the poster. I'm like, oh, I remember Paul Poslusny. Oh, I remember Tony Hunt. Thanks, Jerry Sandusky. And I was like, oh, my God.
That's so funny because, as a final aside to the aside, so, like, I was going through some of my books, and I'm trying to downsize my books. So I was I was atheist with a capital A for a very, 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 very long time.
Sing it, sister.
And so I had a lot of books about atheism. And so that same person, the person who was like an uncle to me, it was David Silverman. He was the previous president of American Atheists. He wrote a book that I had loved at the time. It took me like a day to read it, and he signed it for me. And I was looking at the book while I was, downsizing my books, and I was like, this book doesn't make me happy, and like I I don't really feel like I should keep it around because this person did a bad thing and I don't associate with him anymore. So I was like, okay, do I donate it or do I throw it away? And so I decided two things. Number one, people don't like it when you donate atheist books places.
Dianetics is fine, but forget about atheist books.
Just first and foremost. Second of all, I was like, if I don't agree with this person or want to spread his words around, then I shouldn't donate it. So I put it in the trash, and so now it is being put into a landfill. So I find it really interesting that somebody looked at that poster signed by Jerry Sandusky and was like, I could throw this away, or I could make sure somebody gets it somewhere in the world.
Yeah.
And I think they made the wrong choice on that one.
They could have just cut off the bottom of it, but
right, like do something. I don't know.
I keep thinking of all these great asides as the episode is ending, but
look at us go.
This will be more stuff for the religion episode, but so a friend / acquaintance of mine that I used to work with at Hershey Park is now a very progressive pastor in Philadelphia. Like, he was an Egyptian gentleman. His family was like the one family of color in his particular church growing up, and he does these fantastic posts about actual true social justice and anti-racism in the Christian church. And he actually did an article. I had no idea who this person was, but there was a sort of hip young evangelical person that was very popular in the evangelical community. And then, it turned out he was a super wife abuser and was facing charges for it. And he wrote a post specifically saying that it's your duty as a good Christian not to amplify this person's words anymore. You can try to tell yourself, oh, it's the message that's not important, not the vessel. But that's exactly what gave us Donald Trump as a president, essentially, was that mind flaw. So he said that, if somebody gets to that sort of point, you have a duty as a conscious Christian to not amplify their words. Yeah. And I really enjoyed that take on, again, did not know who the person was, but you could really substitute that for literally any scandal-ridden person anywhere.
Yeah. All right.
Well, this was a fun episode.
Yeah.
But
thanks all over the place.
Thanks for listening, everybody. A new quirk I've found out is that an easier way to listen to our podcast, if you have an Amazon device, you can just ask Alexa to play Depression Vacation Podcast, and it will play the most recent episode for you, and you can cycle through. We're on episode 17 right now. We're trying to make it more accessible. For some reason, what is it? Apple Podcast still does not quite work, so we're working on that.
Fuck you, Apple.
You can still get it on iTunes for some reason. I don't know why the two aren't connected. Or on Spotify, or on our iHeartRadio, or Google Podcasts now. So,
nice. Yeah,
the easiest way is just ask your Alexa device to play Depression Vacation Podcast and give us a listen as you're cleaning your dishes. Why am I saying this to people who are already listening to the podcast?
Because maybe there are other people that have stumbled upon us and say, oh my goodness, look at these, well, not look, but listen to these beautiful voices on our airways.
I don't want people to look at me right now anyway, but...
Well, that's why we do a podcast, Hal, and not a TV show.
Exactly. And I'm glad too, because I've got other friends who are starting a podcast, but they're doing a video element to it. Nice. And so they're hopelessly backlogged on all the video they've shot. And I was like, well, our podcast, we just kind of go in, we talk the shit for an hour and don't have to worry about a video element. And so it's easier to put episodes out, but that's kind of how you apparently do a real podcast. So. But anyway, for Depression Vacation, I've been Hal.
I've been Shannon.
And have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next week where we talk about religion.
Hooray!
Maybe.